Good afternoon, Dr. Baldwin. It is good to see you again. We are rolling, we are recording, and we are excited to capture on tape the historical information that you have for our 60th anniversary here in the MSD of Wayne Township. You were our very first superintendent, and you and I had a chance to sit down and talk prior to our 50th anniversary. You might remember we were right here at Ben Davis High School in the BDTV studios. Actually, I had asked you, if you recall, I had asked you if you would come to our opening day, our big celebration with all of our staff, and you told me no because you were getting ready. You were actually headed up to Chicago to take your grandson to a Cubs game at Wrigley Field, and so you were unable to join us. And that was just, I believe, right around your 90th birthday. So you're turning 100 this year, am I right?
100 years is a long while.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So when you were first hired as superintendent, you were 39 going on 40, still quite a young man. But for our 50th for our 50th anniversary, you started off our video with a quote from Shakespeare's play The Tempest, "What's past is prologue." Can you tell us a little bit more about why that quote was so important to you?
Anytime you're a school superintendent, as you know, you may be asked to give some comments either extemporaneously or planned. And so I had a role in that one a long time ago, as you know. And one of the things that I had accumulated was my copy of Bartlett's familiar quotations. And there it was sticking out for me to be used as the past being a prologue, and evidently what I see here today, there was nothing like that here when I came in 1962.
Matter of fact,
began for some time.
Yeah, matter of fact, you talked to me about, and I'd like to revisit, in 1962 when you were interviewed, you talked about your route to the interview process down 465. Do you remember how 465 was different in 1962?
It was a lot different than it was when I came down for the interview or in a subsequent year. It was a part of a planned community based upon what was happening in the Metropolitan Planning Commission in terms of the development that was going on. And it's interesting for me to see, as I occasionally run down I-465, to see the growth of Park Fletcher and the work that I've had with architectural firms and Park Fletcher over those years.
And do I recall that when you came down for the interview, I believe it stopped at 10th Street, if I'm not mistaken, and you couldn't go any further south than 10th Street. You had to actually get off to go to your interview at that point. Is that correct?
You can go all the way around Indianapolis now.
Yeah, now you can, but at that time you couldn't. That I remember that. What do you recall about school reorganization in the 1960s? Why did we become an MSD at that point in time?
The organization came about as a result of the State School Reorganization Committee's work in providing for a more organized structure of the school in Indiana, led largely by Dr. Otis Bowen, who was governor along about that time, and Heavy Kohlmeyer, who was ag econ professor at Purdue University. Their concept had turned into what is now a community of growth and development, still continuing insofar as I know.
What is interesting, Dr. Baldwin, is there is still discussion about Unigov and how the schools did not consolidate as a result of Unigov many years later, and what that means for our city. So those conversations still continue today, even as they did when you were superintendent here in Wayne Township. When you think about Wayne Township in 1962, when you first came to the district, what do you remember about Wayne Township?
Well, it was a process and development. There was a lot of activity at Mount Olive United Methodist Church, Morris Street, I believe it was, with a mover and a shaker named Ross Mars, who was the minister of the time at Mount Olive Church. And he took over an active leadership in the community, trying to see that what was the dreams of those of us who were involved could become reality in our time.
Well, as you well know, Mount Olive still remains a very vibrant church here in our community, the oldest church in Wayne Township, and it is still serving residents on the west side. So we are excited to still have them as a great partner. One of the things that you were responsible for and that you and I talked about some time ago was the location of Ben Davis High School, which we know is on the corner of 10th and Girls School, but it wasn't originally supposed to be there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Looking all over for a place to build a high school. Fulton Junior High School had just been built on 10th Street and was proving to be quite a success. In fact, it became a landmark in that area, and has later proven to be, from my point of view, an excellent school, and with good leadership over the years. Now, to me, the building of a high school at where it is currently located was not so much of an easy job, because we were trying to fight various political figures who had their own axis to crime. And we had decided that we would build a high school wherever we could get the best location. And the best location was then thought to be on Morris Street, what is known as the McClellan Farm. But it happened to be in line with the runway of the north-south track to Chicago, and that didn't prove out. And so, as such, it became natural for us to look for an alternative, and we found that where the location of the current high school is.
And the original site, as I remembered, is where Carrier Corporation is now, where they build the air conditioning units. Is that right? Corner of 10th and Girls School?
About 18th Street, 17th Street on Girls School Road, the current location. And it was one that came by accident as its experience developed, and I think has proven to be an outstanding location for what, to me, is an outstanding school, not because I've had any part to play with it, but because of people like yourself and your staff who've been a part of that environment over the years.
Well, you're far too kind, because it certainly would not exist, and we certainly would not have the opportunities we do had you not worked very hard to get the location secured where Ben Davis High School currently is located. So thank you for your efforts 60 years ago to move that high school here in 1965 for now what has been almost 60 years of celebrating this building on this corner. As you think about transportation looked very different. Student transportation looked very different when you took over Wayne Township, and you had a role in making that happen. Can you talk a little bit about the transportation system that existed and how you changed it?
Transportation has long been an enigma on the west side. When I became superintendent, the president of the state school bus drivers was a guy by the name of Cecil Bryant. Cecil also was kind of an advocate for contract school bus drivers and the operation of getting kids to school. His son Donnie later became an advocate for transportation. But the thing that really broke the transportation back wide open, in my opinion, was the fact that we had Speedway High School and Speedway Civil Township in addition to the school township, and as such, they were vying for power, and as such, the school bus drivers who favored the contract school bus system lost that battle, but not because of that. They didn't render good service, but in my opinion, because they were willing to give and take as they could.
Do you recall at that time, was that a pretty, did that have a lot of political capital to it? Was that a pretty political move to move from the contracted service to the school-run service?
We've got to remember that politics in Indiana is all local. I have to remember that. They could try to put themselves in a favorable position of serving the public needs at the public's expense. I think that in the long run, what turned out to be a fortunate break when the Speedway School Corporation was advertised separately and apart from the regular school corporation district.
Dr. Baldwin, I know that you didn't probably expect to be celebrating our 50th anniversary 10 years ago. You certainly probably didn't expect to be celebrating the 60th anniversary of the district that you were the first superintendent of. What would you like for people to remember about Wayne Township when it was first created, the MSD of Wayne Township?
Well, from my point of view, one must remember that what can be, will be, if people are willing to make the effort. There were excellent school board members who served during my tenure of both political parties who made their efforts to serve the school community. People like Parker Dunn, Evelyn Abbott, Paul Bars, and others whose names escape me at the moment. As such, I always wanted Ben Davis to win more than one football game. We always seemed to play Decatur Central, and Decatur Central regularly beat Ben Davis High School, and it was always my ambition to have win at least 2 or 3 games. And fortunately, your selection of coach and the teams that he's put on the field have enabled that to happen.
Dr. Baldwin, as we get ready to wrap up, what else would you like for us to know?
Well, I would like for people to remember that what is possible can be possible. Excellence isn't something not easily bought. I remember telling Ralph Chandler, who was the band director at that time, that he didn't have to meet every airplane that came into the airport. He could let 2 or 3 of them land without any recognition. And so, as I have followed the Ben Davis atmosphere over the years, they've done an excellent job. In 1960, when I became the superintendent, the outstanding school district, in my opinion, in the county at that time was the Washington Township schools, and now part of North Central High School. And it's been interesting to follow the evolution and development of the school systems in each of the county, in each of the townships, so that in turn, they all are making a contribution, and proudly so, I think, because of who they are and what they are, the kind of people that they have been able to employ. And it's been a privilege for me to have been able to serve a little bit of time in the Indianapolis West Side.
Well, we have a saying here, Dr. Baldwin. I don't know if it existed when you were here, but it certainly exists today, that the West Side is the best side. And so we are very proud to be here on the west side of Indianapolis. Ben Davis High School is our flagship high school. We now have 3 high schools with Ben Davis University High School and Achieve Virtual High School, but we continue to say the west side is the best side. We want to thank you for setting that up for us. We want to thank you for being our first superintendent 60 years ago, and we appreciate you celebrating our 60th anniversary with us.
It's been my privilege to see you again and to welcome your staff. You've got a great school system. All it takes is just continued effort on their part to make it so, because you've got a great student body my daughter whom was one of the graduates of Ben Davis High School.